The great Bryan Larson. When I introduce you to anybody, I feel like I have to add the great Bryan Larson. Of course, you got number 89 there in the background there. I remembered that, even though I didn't cover the Orediggers when you played. I was going to school at the same time you were going to school. I was over in Missoula, but
Yeah,
you just when I think of Oredigger legends, you're like on the short list of guys that I think of. I think of you, Paul Latke, Jake. Of course we got to throw Vinny out there, Josh Vincent, not Matt at all, just Josh.
of course. Yeah.
But both Vincent brothers actually. But I think of some of the great Orediggers from the Coach Green years, and you're one of the top names that always comes up.
Oh, thanks, Bill. I appreciate that. Just was one of the guys that was lucky enough to be on the team with some great players, and through some great years. Coming in like you mentioned, Eric Jacobson. He was a senior when I was a redshirt freshman, and just learned a ton from that team, and just some of the legends I got to play with over the years. And then even later, we were the '96 season. We were lucky enough to go
Yeah.
to the national championship, but after that, the '97 team, we're right back to the playoffs, and probably is one of the greatest teams Tech has ever seen, up until maybe the team that might surpass them this year. They're doing really, really
Boy, they're
well.
good. Yeah, I didn't get to watch your 96 team at all, but I did watch the 97 game. I was dating a girl who was friends with Dr. Norman's daughter. So I got
Ah,
to watch from the president's booth because the 97 team, had to beat Western like last game of the regular season to win the championship. And I was at, it was cold out if I remember, of course. It was always cold. It's always cold in November when you're watching football games, but I got to watch from the coach's booth there. But I didn't get to watch your team. But when you talk about, you said you were lucky enough to be in the championship game. I don't know if luck had a lot to do with it, but bad luck had a lot to do with you guys not hoisting the championship trophy at the end of that game.
yeah, that was real interesting. Bill, in that year, NAIA had went to a Division I and a Division II, and so we were Division I, which was a smaller amount of teams, but we ended up just having a semifinal and a final game, and we ended up having to play Carroll in the semifinal, which we
Yeah.
beat them for the third time that year. Joe McClafferty made some nice T-shirts that said the sweep, 3-0 against Carroll that year. But then for the championship, we went to play Southwest Oklahoma State, down in Weatherford, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And what was crazy about that, and this living in Butte, and the Butte guys that I played with would tell the stories during high school about when it was cold out, and they're in the state playoffs. A lot of times you had to wear sweatpants over the top of your pads. Well, those 2 weeks before we played in the championship on December 7th, it was dang cold in Butte, and so we
Yeah.
were practicing outside. And when we did, we would put sweatpants over the top of our pads. I still tell people about that today. I think the other crazy thing was, we finally got down to Oklahoma, and we finally got to some thawed ground. So it was like, man, we can actually have traction again. So I think, they were a team that weren't used to playing our offense. Of course, we played everyone in our conference 2 times a year at that point in time. So you were so familiar with your conference foes. I think our offense clicked and defense played well. And yeah, we lost on by 2 points on a controversial safety.
Yeah, I remember having a great conversation with Chad Roesti in the VU, which I had many great conversations with Chad Roesti in the VU over the years, but he was so adamant that that was not a safety, and of course I wasn't there. Bruce Saylor covered the game, and Bruce, he flat out told me he didn't think it was a safety. So I always it was something. I remember the game. Well, I remember when it happened. The second it happened, I was watching the Grizzlies win a playoff game.
That's right,
And
because it was
they
at the same
they
time.
announced the score 31-31. And everyone's like, "Ooh, all right, this sounds pretty good." And it was like literally less than a minute later, they came back and said 33-31. I'm like, "Son of a gun."
Yeah, we got them to a punting situation, and it just a series of events. Of course, you look back on that all the time, and they punted, and it probably hit at about the 7 yard line and was heading out of bounds, but it bounced at the 7 and went kind of just straight down and inside the pylon and then bounced again at the 1 and then bounced out. So that's how we got the ball down at the 1 yard line. It was a really kind of a freak deal that it got down there. We obviously didn't get out, but then we kicked to them, and we did get the ball back at the end with a chance, to try a couple, throws to get down the field. Offenses didn't run today like they did do today with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, where they get down the
Yeah,
field in 13 seconds. So we gave her
yeah,
a shot, and but a lot of good memories.
yeah. It was really windy too. Didn't you had the wind going against you, which was that was a home field advantage kind of deal
Right.
there. They knew which way to pick when they got the toss.
Right. Yeah, it was windy. The other thing I remember about just having the thawed ground was the grass was green. If you ever watched the video, but it really wasn't green. They spray painted it.
Did they?
So if you looked outside of that, there was brown grass. But yeah, a lot of memories from that game and that season, no doubt.
The thing that I did not know until I was looking through newspapers.com, as you know, I like to do, I went back and I read Bruce's story and some other stories, and I didn't realize you caught a touchdown pass in that game to start the scoring off for the Digs.
Yeah, it was another one of those free plays. I played defensive end or defensive line was my usual position, and but I played short yardage all year on power I, what we call it. So I'd come in at the right tight end spot, and I don't think we'd run any pass plays to me on power I. Was just run blocking the whole year, so they hadn't seen anything on tape. And sure enough, we ran this play where I was going to run a pass play. I was supposed to fake down to block, and I did. And I kind of remember coming up out of my fake, and I looked up and I saw the safety was just streaming up towards me, and I was going to get past him. And I said, "Holy crap, I'm going to be wide open." So I turned around, and I think, just of course D-line move. I kind of waved my hands in the air, and then Jensen hit me with the ball, and I was lucky enough to catch it and run it in.
That sounds almost exactly like the description you gave Bruce in the story that he wrote about that score.
I don't know about that. I told you I had some pictures I was going to share. It says that you've disabled the host sharing. I don't know if that's something you can easily turn on, but I do have a picture of the touchdown and then of the team afterwards, if that would be something for.
I'm not even sure where I would disable that. Are you a very good with Zoom?
No, I'm really not, Bill.
Dang it. Yeah, I'm not sure how to figure out how to do that. I'm
Okay.
for a guy who makes his living on technology, Brian, I know very little about technology, and Zoom's a relatively new thing for me.
Well, it humbles
But
us all,
but
no
maybe
doubt.
yeah, maybe you could email me those photos and I could throw them up on the website.
Sounds good.
That way people can take a look at them there. But yeah, that team that you talk about, that Digger team, that's still, they had the banner. I don't know if it's still up in the banner. Everyone signed it in the VU. I haven't been in the VU in a whole. I've been in the pizza side of the VU, but I haven't been on the bad side of the VU in a while.
Yeah, I don't remember the banner up there. Very well could be, but I mean, it was just a great group of guys and a core group of Butte guys as well, with Vinny, uh, Chris Opie on that team, and then of course Lance and Daryl didn't play that senior year, but man, I did make some good friends in Butte and enjoyed playing with those Butte guys for sure.
Yeah, Ope, I had him on the podcast. It's been a couple of years ago now, I think, but
Well, I listened to it.
I talk about Opie a lot especially when someone talks about bully and someone accuses them of being a bully. Like they didn't even know what it was like to have a bully. We had such a good bully at the Kennedy that there was only one bully because no one else could bully anybody because Opie would come kick your butt if you tried to bully anybody else.
Yeah, he lives up to his reputation for sure. But
Yeah.
talk about a great guy. I mean, that's one of the things coming into Butte, from Gillette, Wyoming, didn't really know a soul. But immediately the team welcomes you in, and that freshman class of Butte guys, they welcomed us right in. And Bing and Laura Leopi were a couple that, I mean, they had me over for Sunday dinners and opened up their house, and it's a big deal. And you don't really realize that, Bill, until you live somewhere else, like out here
Yeah.
in California. That just doesn't happen. And what those Butte guys did for us, the guys from out of town, and especially like Bing and Laura Lee, they were just unbelievable supporters of Montana Tech and unbelievable supporters of the Tech football team.
Yeah, they're great people, the Opies for sure. And Chris is, I always tease him about being a bully, which, but if you, the beauty of Chris Opie is I wish everyone would have had a chance to go to a touchdown club meeting run by Bob Green when Chris was asking questions.
They
Because
were they were notorious, yes.
yeah, because Coach Green, he would go back to Opie every time expecting a serious question, and Opie never ever gave him a serious question. But he kept going back expecting a serious one.
He's one of a kind, no doubt.
Yeah, and that also in that team, of course, Mark Jensen. I don't know if I've ever seen a tougher quarterback than Jensen. I hate to give him credit. I'd like to tell him, as soon as his son was about to be a high school star, he moved to Denver. I said, we had to put up with you all these years, and you're finally useful to us again, and you move out of town. But
Yeah,
he returned kickoffs as a
yeah,
quarterback. You'll never see that again.
yeah. Digger MJ. That was his sophomore year. He played a little bit of quarterback
Yeah.
in my junior year, and we weren't great that year record wise, and it was the last couple of games where I can't remember the exact game, but Mark was on kickoff return and I think kickoff coverage, but then he had gone into the game as the quarterback. Well, we had scored, and I think he was still out there on kickoff coverage, and coach was going bananas. But that was Mark's position, was to play on kickoff coverage,
Yeah.
so they had to yank him off. But no, special player. I mean, just he's one of those guys with the it. He had that it, and you never felt out of a game or never felt out of it with Mark on the field, and still a great friend today. We take that jackpot trip every year, and Mark is there most years, and I always enjoy getting to catch up with him. And he's one of those guys that he plays the game like he plays life, and he's not scared to take a gamble. I don't know if you knew, he was the one year they had a poker tournament the first Friday when we get down there, and Mark Jensen won it one year. So
no kidding.
Just the typical Mark Jensen. He's the guy that's going to win the poker tournament. He's your quarterback that you want on the field. He was a special one to play with.
Yeah, and you had to see him in practice just about every day. That was back when practices were a little more live,
Right.
I think, than they are today. He actually hit people in practice in the 90s, right?
Totally. Yeah, we were full pads every day except for Friday when we always said, Coach, we're doing a shoot around. He hated that, right? Coach Green hated that. We're not doing a shoot around.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were in pads, full pads, for all other practices.
Okay. Were you ever involved in any of the hijinks when they made fun of Coach Green, or they teased him, like throwing Danny Green, pretending Danny Green was in the ice machine and stuff like that?
So that was a little before my time, or maybe my freshman year.
Yeah.
That was really big, Vinny. That did that. But the things we used to do, if I could tell a couple of stories about Coach, was we were always big on the spies, and Coach Green would look, there's spies, and so whenever a bus would go up, especially kind of preseason, would go up Park Street, maybe heading to the mining museum, we'd start yelling, "It's the Jimmies," because we were playing Jamestown, and spy. And then the other one that was fun was they'd have the helicopter tours that would go up to the Lady of the Rockies, but they come around the mining museum, and there's one practice when the helicopters came over, and I was yelling, "Incoming!" And I'd go and I went and tackled Coach Green and brought him down. I'm not quite sure what he thought about that, but he told me I could carry his rifle any day. So
yeah,
had a lot of fun. Practices at Montana Tech were very, very fun and very, very entertaining.
Yeah, he is. Of course, he's still the same guy that he always was. He's into his 70s now, Coach Green. I'm not exactly sure how old he is for sure, but 39 is what he'll tell you if you ask him, I believe. Or although he kind of went past that, he's a geriatric coach now, so maybe he kind of got past 39. But yeah, I enjoyed going to the practices when I was a writer for the Montana Standard so much. Like my favorite greenism, which I wrote about all the greenisms end of the year. I'd put the big collection of his best ones, but the best one he ever had was I don't know if you heard me tell this story before, but his team was struggling on the hyperfield, and they're trying to getting lined up for some calisthenic drill he was trying to do, and they didn't. And he goes, "Man, it's a good thing you guys weren't with me in '69. I wouldn't be here." So, I mean, some of the funniest lines were the ones that weren't the prepared ones that he had for the media. It was the ones that just came out on their own.
Yeah, we would during stretching, we would always have some jokes about some players and stuff that's going on. But especially, even our senior year and heading up to that, we were, everyone loved Carroll. Carroll was great. Western, had been to the playoffs the few years before and was a great team. And we just didn't feel like we were getting a lot of credit. And we always used that as a chip on your shoulder. So we would always say that, a different game was the Frontier Conference game of the week. And so
Yeah.
I think even heading into the national championship game, we picked some women's basketball game and we said, "Coach, we heard that, Western women versus Rockies is the Frontier Conference game of the week." And no, Bryan, God damn it, that's not the truth. But no, stretching at Montana Tech was a special, special time. And I still think back to some of those days and just chuckle.
Yeah. Yeah. He's so much fun. I'd imagine when your kid sees him, because you grow up in Gillette, Wyoming, and you come to Tech to visit Bob Green. I mean, you probably never saw anybody even remotely like him before in your life. That really had to help cement you on going to school there. I imagine that was one of the deciding factors for you going to Montana Tech.
Well, you can't, there's no comparable to Bob Green, but one of the things, I was getting recruited coming out of high school and well, actually, I was a basketball player in high school and I thought that was my sport, right?
Oh,
Because
really?
basketball was
Because
what I
you're about
did
like
with my
6'3", 6'4", right? Or
yeah, and that was kind of part of the problem. So, but all my buddies played basketball, and that's what we did all summer. Was we would one of my buddies' dads, Mike Ladkey, would load us up in the Suburban, and we were doing summer ball tournaments kind of before summer ball was a big deal. And so we would go. He would take us to Nebraska and down to Fort Collins, and we'd play in all these tournaments. And basketball is a pretty big deal in Wyoming. And I remember before my junior year, I was starting both ways in football, and before on Fridays they would always have plyometrics for basketball. So I'm in the gym doing plyometrics, jumping boxes, doing these hoop jumps and all this. And the football coach walks through. He's like, "Bryan, what are you doing?" And I said, "Coach, I'm getting ready for basketball season." And so, but as things progressed, we had a great basketball team and I loved it. Our football team was good too. We played for the state championship my senior year. But I kind of started to realize as the recruiting season was going around, it was like, 6'3" white guys are kind of a dime a dozen. So, and I was getting recruited by a lot of the North Dakota schools and Nebraska schools and obviously Montana schools for football. But, I took that visit to Tech and I actually was up there with my dad and we stayed in the dorms. And I just remember telling my dad that night, I'm signing tomorrow. And
nah.
it was Coach Green and Coach Corliss and just the feeling, Eric Jacobson was part of my recruiting trip. Chuck Forgy, I got to meet him on
Oh,
my
I
recruiting
love
trip.
Chuck. Yeah.
Thad Peterson. So, all those guys that became my great friends. You just could feel the vibe at Montana Tech that it was going to be a special place to be. Plus, it's great engineering school. I mean, man,
Yeah.
how can you beat it?
You can't. I think it's impossible. And you mentioned Chuck. I don't know if he's still coaching. I did a story on him a few years ago on Butte Sports when he was coaching in the Bob Cleverly Class C All-Star game. So he
Yeah, I
was,
don't think he's coaching anymore, but he's really gotten back involved in tech. Bill, it's been really cool for Chuck, with his kids growing up and him coaching, he wasn't making it over to games and now we've got him back on the jackpot trip and
oh,
Chuck is
good.
very involved. I don't know if you know this, the new trailer we have for the Emitad Club, he's the guy that did the wrapper for it and kind of got that thing tricked out. So if you get a chance to see it on Saturday, if you see Chuck over there, make sure you tell him good
Yeah.
job because he did a heck of a job with that thing.
Yeah. I actually haven't been at a game this year. I watched him on my phone a lot, watch him on YouTube, but I haven't actually been at a game. Something's come up every time I was doing something for whatever reason. Hopefully I'll make it there this week, but
Well, the way the team's playing, there's going to be a few more in Butte, so that's
yeah,
going to be awesome to get that playoff run and get some home
yeah.
games in Butte, and that's going to be a special deal for the kids, the fans, for everyone.
Yeah, and this team, I want to talk a lot about your high school days and stuff first, but first, let's talk about this team here, because they're undefeated, they're 10-0. It's something that's never. I mean, I don't think they were 5-0 before,
That's
and now
correct.
now they're 10-0, and it's so much fun just to follow this team. They're so good. The Coach Sampson. It's not surprising. Coach Sampson is. I mean, he's a lot different than Coach Green, obviously, because everybody's different than Coach Green. But the kids come, they want to play for Coach Sampson. He's a genuine article. He's a good guy. He's one of my favorite people in the world. But he's doing such a good job, and he's done such a great job with the recruiting, and not only Montana kids and Butte kids. He brings all the but he brings a running back in from the SEC,
Isn't that
which
unbelievable?
which is that kid is a beast.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing I'd say, Bill, that I've seen with it, what Coach Sampson has done is just build on the culture.
Yeah,
He kind of came in with the family, culture and count on me culture. And those are words. And for a new coach, those words, even as alumni, you're kind of looking at it like, ooh, I don't
yeah,
know. But man, he lives it, he builds it. And that team, you can just see, I mean, they lost what, 20 some seniors last year
yeah.
and weren't, you kind of just didn't know they're going to be young. They recruited well, but man, they came out and I think Western, they punched them in the mouth and, that surprised Western. Honestly, we jumped up on them. And after that, I think the team just built confidence and you can see it every week. And Coach Sampson talks about it. As part of Emmett Club, we have a weekly conference call with Coach Sampson every Wednesday, and he spends 45 minutes with us talking about the game before and the next game. And he talks about the culture part and how, even these transfers that come in, they need to be fits. And I don't think he hesitates to look at, culture over talent.
Yeah.
And, that shows on the field. That team is every week is more and more together. The team, they're playing for each other. They're playing with each other. They're doing complementary things with each other. It's just really special to see how this team has grown together this year.
Yeah, and now they have, well, that young man got hurt in that accident, and you see this team the way they're rallying around him too. Hopefully he's doing well. I haven't heard any updates on his condition, but I know he's fighting. Hopefully he's doing well, and that could be a rallying cry for this team too to go all the way to the. I could see this team winning the championship, going to the championship again, because the way it's set up. Because the Frontier Conference for years, even under Coach Morrell, he had two teams that I thought were probably the best teams in the nation if they didn't get hurt. They lose Nolan Saraceni. One year they lost Nolan Saraceni and Quinn McQuarrie at the same time. If they'd have kept one of them, I think they're national champions that year.
I
But
agree.
but the way the NAIA is set up, it's so hard to move up to the top. Once now this year they're up there top, so next year they might start at the top, but they started down low, and it's so hard to get up there. And when you're playing in the Frontier Conference, when you had to play Western twice, Carroll twice, and even there was no easy games. Rocky was never an easy game to play them twice, so that always made it so you were never going to get an undefeated team. Carroll had when they won the national championship, they always had, they were getting the benefit of the doubt and getting home games. But it's so hard to get a home game past that first round. Now I think you could see these guys with the home game right into the semifinals potentially.
No, you're dead on, Bill. And I think, the other part to that, well, there's two things I'll say. One, back in the day, and the reason that 5-0 is the mark, we used to play a 1AA back in the day.
Yeah.
And, of course, we've come close a couple times and, whatever, but those are tough games to win. You just want to survive and get out without getting a bunch of guys injured. And, you're getting a paycheck for that to help the athletic department. But so it made it hard for a team to get to 5-0, because it surprises me that Jensen and the boys on 97 weren't 5-0. They should have been 5-0. That team was just stacked. And then I think, the nice thing this year is the coaches poll in the NAIA is not a main criteria. It's not a criteria for the playoffs. They've got a Massey index. They've got I'm going to get it wrong, RPI, I think they call it, but a numerical algorithm they put together. And Tech is right up there, 1, 2, or 3 in those other polls. So it'll be interesting. We talked about it today a little bit with Matt on the call. No one knows. No one's ever done selection this way without the coaches poll being a criteria. So are they really going to throw that out, or is that going to play a factor in how seeding ultimately happens?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see for sure, because it was just always so tough too. It used to drive me bonkers. Or sometimes Tech would tie for the Frontier Conference title with. It happened where they tied with the Frontier Conference title with Carroll during their championship years. I think it may be in 03 or 05, whenever, but they have a loss to a 1AA team, and they count that as if it was a loss to another NAIA school. It was just a loss is a loss.
Yeah.
It was so. I always despised the way the NAIA did it. There's rankings, and of course, I always used to joke the Frontier Conference tiebreaker used to come down every year as Mike Van Diest got to sit back and decide how it was broken after it was a tie, because it always benefited Carroll somehow. The ever changing. It was defensive points allowed, sometimes different things, but yeah. So it's good to see that they're evolving a little bit here in the NAIA, because the NAIA football is, to me, it's true college football today. The bigger you get the portal and all that stuff kind of changed things in NIL and all that stuff, but the NAIA just seems like true college football.
I think so, Bill. And I think that, to your point with the portal, you're going to benefit from that, and you're going to get hurt from that from time to time in the NAIA. But for the most part, you've got those kids going to school. They're, like me coming out of Gillette, I wasn't at University of Michigan or Ohio State or something. So you kind of know I'm probably not going pro.
Yeah.
So you're there to get a great degree, and you gain a lot of loyalty, and you get a lot of those, they're all 4th and 5th year starters. And so the teams are a lot, tighter. You've got more mature, players playing. You obviously have freshmen coming in that make a splash, and sophomores, but you kind of grow that older class, and I think that's pretty cool for the kids.
Yeah. And have you been to, you come to a game at least every year, don't you? Have you been to did you come to homecoming? Is that when you came?
I came to the Copper game this year,
Oh, did you?
Bill. Yeah, I wanted to see that for a few years, and it worked out this year the way I've got a daughter in high school, the way her schedule worked out to be able to come to the Copper game. But yeah, I've been lucky enough, Bill, I was on the Montana Tech Foundation board for the past, but I just got off the past 8 or 9 years. And so I've always, would have them schedule a foundation meeting around a game. So I've been lucky to make it to at least one game and then sneak up to a couple of playoff games the last couple of years when Tech's in it. So I've been lucky enough to see him play live. But I want to put a plug in for Digger Vision too, and what Paul Panisco does with Coach Haskett up there. I mean, that is an awesome, awesome broadcast. And
They don't get any better than those two, do they? I hate to say something nice about Paulie, but publicly. But yeah,
well,
they do
they've
such a
got
good job.
the broadcast and they've got commercials. It's like watching a regular ABC game. But I think, you really start to listen to some of these other announcers, and the ones at Rocky, it's like, oh my goodness. And you really appreciate what Paul and Ron do and how they study both teams. They're not homers. They know the good
Yeah.
players on the other team, and they're calling out, just as much good information on the visiting team as they are the home team. So pretty special deal that they've set up with Digger Vision. I'm glad that Paul's doing that. And yeah, he's a star. He's really, really good. We're lucky to have him.
Yeah, and he's always been good. I've always said that, I work with Paul for a long time. He's one of my good friends. We sat next to each other in the class for driver's ed. That's how long I've known Paul Panisco.
Wow.
And but you could be a Carroll fan and listen to his broadcast and you'd be fine. You're not getting mad at the homer announcer. He's just a great announcer. Of course, voice gets up there a little bit higher sometimes on a big Orediggers play. But then Haskett just knows the game so well that he can describe just the little things so well. And it's great. He was always great in the radio, but it's even better when you can sit and watch the game and watch and listen to him describe what happened or what's going to happen. Or yeah, he's as good as it comes.
Yeah, they're both, and I didn't know Paul when I was going to school there. He wasn't the radio announcer for Tech when I was going to school, but I've gotten to know him well, obviously with his work with the foundation and his wife being at the foundation, gotten to know him really well over the past decade. And then, Coach Haskett, he coached us when we were at Tech, and he was the bartender at the Voo, so we got to know him pretty well. And it's just great to see Coach Haskett, up there doing that and for the Digger Nation.
Yeah, the Voo. Chuck was there for a while, bartending. Chuck and Haskett, and then Saturdays. Eventually, I don't know if he was there. Then Tom Southwick took over on Saturdays.
Oh yeah,
and I got to know. Here's how good I knew Tom Southwick. I met him when he first was working at the video store, West Side Video. And then I started going to the Voo on Saturdays. He was bartending, and I talked to him so much. He ended up being in my wedding. I had a bartender from the Voo in my wedding, and he's still one of my good friends today. I don't think a day goes by that I don't hear from Tom on Messenger sending me something, the goofy thing.
That's awesome.
But yeah, what a great place I guess it's probably still a good place. The Voo. I don't drink anymore, so I can't. I don't go. I try to avoid those places, like I used to. But yeah, that was my all-time favorite place to go was the Voo Villa.
Yeah, I wrote a lot of checks for cash to the Voo Villa.
Yeah, I wish I could have back some of the money just like half the money that I spend in the day. I named my daughter Delaney, which and Haskett did this. Haskett's daughter's like 2 or 3 weeks younger. We both named him Delaney, and the reason my wife wanted to name my daughter Laney because there's some TV show or movie she saw with the name Laney, and she wanted that. And I looked on the book in a little name book we had, and it was an English name. I said, well, I'm a Foley. I can't have an English name. And then lady I work with, Christy Constantine, suggested, why don't you name her Delaney and then call her Laney, which we do. And it's a great idea. So Charlie thought that Haskett and I were trying to get into his will with competition. They're naming our daughters Delaney.
No, the Voo was the happening place when we were there. And it's, it goes up and down when I'm back from time to time, but it's always great to be in there. There's a lot of big memories there.
Yeah. And the pizza's still good. We started getting the pizzas again after several years. And the Digger, I introduced my son to the Digger special, and he wants that almost every night.
Oh, the taco pizza is off the charts. I brought a group from California to a game. This must have been 2019, and because I've been talking about Tech football, and I think there was 7 of us, 6 other couples came with my wife and I up, and We scheduled the trolley. We did a tour on Friday afternoon of Butte. We went to the mining, down to the mining museum, went down the mine shaft, went to the speakeasy, went to the VU, met Coach Green. We had quite a trip, but yeah, they still remember the taco pizza.
Yeah, I'm sure they remember Coach Green too.
Oh yeah.
Especially if you got Coach Green after dark,
Oh yeah.
the stories that the being at the VU when the coaches clinic or the camps were going on, that was the R-rated Coach Green was so funny.
He can hold court, no doubt.
Yeah, yeah. So you're in Gillette, and Gillette's I was looking up today. It's a town that says it's about 33,000, which is probably similar to what Butte has for population. Is it a similar kind of town? Because that was a mining town and a coal town, kind of blue collar kind of place to live, I imagine.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Bill. That's there's a lot of similarities between Gillette and Butte. Obviously, the mining connection. Gillette's more coal, open pit mining. Butte obviously with the underground history. Gillette's a little newer in terms of their mining history. Butte has
Yeah,
a little richer, longer history. But the amount of people that and of course hindsight's always 2020. But looking back on it, there are so many similarities. One of the big ones I would say that both Butte and Gillette are envies of their states. Butte America, obviously,
yeah,
you've said this many times on your podcast, and I know it that, if you're from Butte or live in Butte, you love Butte. Everyone else, not so much.
yeah. Butte envy. That's what Matt
Yeah.
Vincent called it. Yeah,
Butte envy, exactly.
yeah.
Well, and Gillette, we were in Campbell County, and there's now 2 high schools, but for years we were the biggest high school in the state, and our goal was to win every state championship. Well, they call us the triple CSers, the Campbell County cocksuckers. And there's actually a song about it. I don't know if the song's on Apple Music or anything, but
Yeah,
there's a song that's floated around the state about the people from Campbell County, and
yeah.
they don't appreciate us much.
Well, that's good. Of course, I wore that on my sleeve though. Kara, I went to school in Missoula, and we weekly you'd get someone say, "Oh, you're from Butte." And like,
Totally,
damn right I am,
totally.
I wear like Dennis Leary would say, people from New York wear it on their sleeve. Like, guy said, I'm from I served in Vietnam. He goes, oh yeah, well, I'm from New York City. Really? But that's kind of how Butte people are in a lot of ways. At least that's how I was. But yeah, I like to see similar towns like that. Like my buddy John Carr he was down in Western. He's a teacher, John Carr Arsenega, and he came from Elko, and he always talks about the similarities between Elko
Sure.
and Butte, and that's why he's a teacher would like to come to Butte one day and eventually work. But yeah, I love towns like that. The towns that nobody don't appreciate, even though they couldn't live without us.
Yeah, well, and then the people too. Mick Dennehy was the Campbell's football coach when I first moved to Gillette in 4th grade, and his son Jake and I
I
went 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade together.
No
Um,
kidding.
yeah, we played basketball and football together, so I knew Jake really well. And I still when I see Mick, I see him at the country club or when I'm in Butte, if I run into him, still says hello. He actually coached us in kind of little guy basketball. We would go to some tournaments and with Jake and myself and some of my buddies, and Mick was our coach, so
No
that's
kidding.
always kind of fun. And then I don't know, are you close in age to any of the Kumba kids, Maggie Kumba or
I remember Mike Kumba.
okay? So
He was the same grade as me. Yeah.
one of the older sisters, Bernadette, it was a environmental engineer at the power plant that my dad worked at,
Oh, really?
and he had introduced one of our friends that he had from the oil field to Bernadette. They ended up getting married, and they actually got married in Butte. And so that was one of my first trips to Butte, Montana, was to go up for the wedding.
Oh, awesome.
Um, and then Sean Neary obviously is the
Oh,
coach
yeah.
for Gillette College there, the head basketball coach, and he's a Butte guy.
Yeah, he's a legend. I believe he was on the 84 basketball team that won the state title. He was in that era anyway. Maybe it might have been a year behind or
Yeah.
so. Might have been 86 guy.
So yeah, a lot of connections between Gillette and Butte
Yeah.
for sure.
So what kind of a coach was Mick? Was he a gruff, crabby old coach when he coached basketball, or was he a little bit easier on you guys?
Yeah, he was Mick, and I think, probably obviously he was, I wasn't even close to high school and he was a high school football coach, but, he would coach in that, kind of Butte way of where he was tough on you, but he would poke fun at you as well.
Yeah.
And in the end, you respected him, and he was out there to make you a better player and a tougher player, and made you damn proud to play not only for him but with the team you're playing with.
Yeah, I got to see the different side of Mick a lot. That a lot of the media guys did not like working with Mick because he didn't give you long answers. He wasn't very good quote. And usually when he started a sentence, he didn't always finish that sentence. So wait when he was talking, but he was so good to me because of the Butte connection there, you know. So I got to see a little lighter side of Mick Dennehy than I think a lot of the reporters did when over Missouri. You know, I was a student newspaper guy then. But
Right.
it was, yeah, I that guy's one of my all-time favorite people. I,
He's great.
yeah. That's awesome. And then, of course, there's a pretty good connection with the diggers you talk about. I was looking at one of your box scores from basketball your senior year, and I can't remember how many points it said you scored, but you were one of the leaders, and the other one, I think it said Bubba Ladke.
Yeah, Bubba is Paul's cousin.
Oh, it's a cousin, huh?
Yeah.
It wasn't a brother, huh?
No,
Because
Paul
Paul's
has
a little bit younger than us.
he's 1 year younger than me,
Oh, okay, so pretty close, huh?
and then he's actually got a brother that's 1 year older than me. So I
Yeah.
was right in the middle of the James Ladke boys, and then Mike Ladke, who's James's brother, Bubba's his son. And Bubba and I were best buddies, you know, all through middle school, all through high school, playing basketball. That's just what we
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. Paul Ladke, of course, one of the toughest guys I ever saw play football. And my favorite thing about Paul Ladke is it reminds me of Coach Green's daughter getting married. Katie Green got married, and they had a beautiful, like a candlelight ceremony at the courthouse on a Saturday night. And when she told her dad what the date was, his response was, "But that's Paul Ladke Day." Because he had, I can't remember what year it was. It was early 2000s, you know, 2004, five, somewhere maybe in there. And he had a, you know, because he always had the day. I'm pretty sure there was a Bryan Larson day up there when the first game of the season. He would have a special day dedicated to one player, and you know, Paul was back for that day, and then Coach Green had to go behave and go to the wedding after the game.
Well, Paul definitely deserved every bit of that. Talk about a player. You know, I think with Paul, the crazy thing was is you got this kid who just ran all over the field, created havoc, knocking heads, you know, just knocking people all over the place. And at the end of the game, going through the line, you see this goofy kid with red hair and long sideburns that's shaking your hand. I think the other team had to be like, who changed uniforms? Where's the real number 51?
Yeah.
But no, it was special to see him play and see what he could do on the field. He was just so fast. It's not something you think about, you know, with Paul Ladke about being fast, but he was just so fast.
Yeah.
And he would hit. I knew that from high school. You know, he was the second string middle linebacker, and I was the starting center my senior year, and so I had to play against him every day in practice. And he has this deal where he can just tuck his head and hit you, and it's like electric shocks go through you. So.
Did you help him recruit him to Montana Tech?
You know, I saw Paul at the state basketball tournament. I went down my freshman year. I went down and saw the Camels play, and I ran into Paul, and he talked about wanting to be an engineer. And I said, well, you better check out Montana Tech. So I don't know how far that took it, but you know,
Yeah.
Paul probably, you know, lived on his own merits a little bit too. He was a heck of a player, and you know, the thing I remember of Paul up at Tech is as a redshirt freshman, you know, we had other older linebackers, but they kept telling him to get in there, Paul, and you know, just didn't want to, you know, kind of be that guy that was in there with the first team, but he deserved every bit of it. And I
Yeah.
think he was that starter. The other thing I remember with Paul was, you know, having that ginger hair, he'd sunburn easily. So he always wore sweatpants when the rest of us are in shorts, so he didn't burn his legs off.
That's awesome. Yeah, he was such a good player, and I think of guys like him running around hitting people hard. You know, I think of course Travis Heddick is one of the hardest hitting guys I've ever seen in my life play
Travis
football.
Travis is an absolute stud. Now Travis redshirted my senior year, so I didn't get to
So
play necessarily on the field with him. But again, in practice every day,
yeah,
I you know D line drills. He and I were both on the D line, and you know just seeing what Travis did in his career was awesome. But just knowing him when you know when he redshirted that year, not unexpected. That guy's
yeah,
a wild man.
he could play. I bet he could go play right now. You know, he'd
Yeah,
go out there and play. He played in the Pig Bowl. They had a couple times. 2 years in a row they had a Pig Bowl, which they had to stop because all the cops and firemen and EMTs were all missing a week or two of work after because they were hurt or sore. But him and Scott Manzani went out there and played that game. you'd have thought there was Super Bowl. I mean, they had that look in their eyes like they're playing in college, and just Manzani hit Russ Robertson. There was a cop. He hit him so hard, and Russ popped right back up. I thought he killed him when he first hit him. But you know how, and I don't know if you never played with Manzani. He was a little bit behind you. But every hit that Manzani had in college would be a targeting penalty today. And he was playing like that in the Pig Bowl.
Not surprising. I've gotten to know Scott pretty well over the years on the
Yeah.
jackpot trip and just on my trips back to Butte, and someone I consider a really good friend. Real great guy. Just
Yeah.
enjoyed Scott a lot.
Yeah, he's going to be on our Butte Sports Hall of Fame selection committee
Oh,
that's
that's
coming up.
That's
So,
great.
and you know, what a great, yeah, he's one of my all-time favorite people as well. And another name that, and I think of Orediger guys who are a little bit touched in the head when they're running out there was Kent Bowes. And I don't know
Oh,
if your career overlap with Bowes at all.
so he was a let's see, he was a redshirt freshman, I think, when I was a senior. So we played with us. It was his second year. Vinny, I always like to give those smoker names. Kent Bowes was Smokestack Lightning. And yeah, he was a player. And again, just another one of those guys, kind of like Paul Adke. You just knew when they came in as freshmen, like these guys are going to be dudes. And yeah, I know Kent lived up to every bit of that. He was a fun guy to be around, fun guy to poke a little bit at because you could get under his skin and just see him get pissed off. But yeah, on the football field, he's a heck of a player. Glasgow Scotty.
Yeah, there's some stories from the VU that I better not tell on the podcast, but someday I might have to write a book. There's a couple of times I thought I was going to have to testify by hanging out with Bose at the VU or in the vicinity of Bose at
There you go.
the VU. But one of my he just played football the right way, and I love that guy. Coach Green he had an eye for guys like that, and he always had an eye. Of course, he thought everybody was a defensive player.
Right.
You could lead, you could be an all-state quarterback coming. You'd be a great linebacker. But just some of those great Orediggers. And as I said, your name pops up right towards the top of that. And you mentioned the smoker. Did you ever fight in the smoker?
I did fight in the smoker.
Really?
Yeah, my freshman year would have been sort of spring, so it would have been '93. I fought Lance Steelman.
Oh, really? You fought Lance?
Yeah.
Boy, if Lance wanted to fight me, I'd join the Witness Protection Agency. I know that.
Well, I probably got a little lucky. Lance didn't show up to many practices and maybe a little out of shape, but I got the victory. But no, it kind of sucked because you kind of want to fight somebody from Western, but
yeah, and you want to
it didn't work out. Yeah.
Yeah, the smoker was it Ted Little. I went to watch the smoker one time. Remember Teddy?
Oh
He
yeah.
went, and it must have been 98. It wasn't the last year. I think 99 was the last year. Or maybe it was, yeah, I think 99 was the last year. So it might have been 98, but some kid from Western Ted just cocked one arm back, and he just ran and swung his arm to try to punch him. And this kid was tall and just trying to avoid him. And when he finally did punch him, he knocked him right through the ring, right through the ropes. Because after 3 rounds, he got tired of running, and Ted finally caught up with him. But that smoker was. It seems like one of those things that people wouldn't believe that actually happened. It's like quarter beer night at the Butte Copper King games. You wouldn't believe that really happened, But the smoker was the last year of the smoker. I remember people started drinking keg about noon at the VU. And then there was as I said on the scanner, I was listening to the scanner that night at the Standard. I said, we have a major 912 at the Hyper Complex.
Oh yeah, those smokers. You're right. Yeah, I don't think you couldn't bring that back today. But they were a lot of fun when we had them.
Yeah. Oh, it was a blast. There's a lot of fights always, obviously, every year. Bruce Saylor was really nervous about sending Matt Vincent up to cover the smoker a couple of times. He said, just remember, Vinny, this is not participatory journalism. Because he saw Vinny start a few fights in the day when he was in the college.
Exactly. Yeah, he was part of a legendary blow up. Yeah.
Yeah, he was. And so would you have played any? You probably would have played with a little bit with Matt Vincent too, then,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think 2 years. I think.
Yeah, because you would have been there in the game when he jumped off sides, the Carroll game, right?
I was there.
Yeah, which I went back and read the story on that because, legend has it, Matt Vincent kept jumping off sides, and they eventually gave it, people talk like 5-6 times, but it was twice. It was, Eddie Kelly was ready to throw him out of the game when Smith came in and said, no, that's a touchdown. I can still hear Green. I was sitting on the end zone, right up above the end zone where the play happened, up really high. I was a freshman at Tech before I went to UM. And I could still hear Coach Green say, that is not a rule. That is not a rule.
The only what does he say? The only awarded touchdown where the ball didn't actually go into the end zone
Yeah.
that season.
There was a play in the NFL where that came up. It didn't happen, but it came up a couple last year, the year before.
I
And
remember seeing that. Yeah.
yeah, so I just had to text Coach Green. Of course,
Yeah.
you get the text back in all caps, copy first thing, copy. But yeah, because that was the only time I think that ever happened. But
Yeah. That was something else.
but that must have been, yeah, that was fall of '93.
Yep.
So you graduated in '92 from Gillette.
Graduated in 92 from Gillette. So I was a redshirt freshman that year. I was on the sidelines for it.
Yeah, so you were the same age as me. I graduated '93, as I said before. You know my line.
Yeah.
Third grade was hard. But so you must be 51 then, are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when's your birthday?
January.
Okay, so you're just a little older than me. I was born in April. Okay, so we're both the perfect age, right? You're great vintage there. 59, born in '74.
Exactly, Bill. Yeah.
Great year. And you mentioned when I was messaging you about setting up this podcast, you said you can't wait to see what I'd bring up by finding on newspapers.com. And of course, the Ladke one was Bubba Ladke was the name that jumped off of me. It's like, man, that there's no way that he could not be related to Paul. But you were selected for the Down Under Bowl.
Yeah.
What was that like?
So that was an all-star team. A little bit of a sham. They had an all-star team and you were selected for it, but you had to pay your own way and all of this. So we were a team from Wyoming, which Wyoming population-wise is an extremely small state.
Yeah, very small.
And we flew over to Australia and played a team from Utah.
Oh, no kidding.
And so there were quite a few players that were going to, BYU, University of Utah, Utah State, all those colleges. And so we raised money. We got to fly over there. We got to practice at a rugby facility, and then we played two games. First one in Newcastle, which is very similar to Gillette, kind of a coal mining town. And then the second one, I think we played in Bathurst, and we just got annihilated. They had some athletes. A thing I remember, they didn't really know how to keep time in the second game, so they kept stopping the clock after every play. So the first quarter took like an hour, and they quickly fixed that. But no, it was an awesome experience. My first time ever flying overseas, and first time actually flying, period. And to get to go with your high school buddies and guys that you played against, for years in the state, had a good time and made some really good friendships there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool experience just to go to Australia and see that down there. I've never been anywhere near there. It'd be pretty cool to go down and see all that.
It was great. Australia is, one of the countries that I've been at that I really do enjoy. Yeah, it's a pretty cool place.
Have you been back there with your job ever since then, or was that the only time?
I have been back to Australia, let's see, once or twice for work. A lot of my travels, Bill, we make medical devices for surgery, and we focus kind of on the camera systems and the technology that allow you to do minimally invasive surgery. So instead of slicing you wide open, we do, they go in with a scope in one port, they hook our camera on, and they put instruments in the other. So a lot of our technology comes from the Asian countries, camera technology from Japan, display technology from Korea. We get a lot of optics out of China and Singapore. So, never had a plan. That's not anything that was ever on my bucket list to go do, but I've been really blessed as part of my role to, be able to make quite a few trips over to Asia and Europe as well, but especially Asia, and see a lot of sites and experience a lot of cultures. It's really been a blessing.
Yeah, and you work for Stryker still, right?
Stryker is the name of the company. Yep.
Yeah, and must be about 30 years, or closing in on 30 years that you've been there now.
28, yeah.
Yeah. And do you work on developing that technology, or do you work putting it together? Because what did you graduate in? Engineering science and a minor in business, if I'm
That's correct, Bill. Yep. So basically mechanical engineer. I came in on the operations side of the business, helping support the production line and transferring products from R&D into production. I went and got my MBA. Coach Abbott helped kind of advise me there. I was getting out of
great Doug Abbott, huh?
minor, about hey, if a company is going to pay for your MBA, that's a great way to go back and get it. So I took advantage of that, going to Santa Clara University and getting my MBA. Got that in 2001, and then I moved to R&D in 2000, and I've kind of just grown my career within R&D, working in the sports medicine space at first, which we're making the procedure-specific instrumentation, fixation devices, implants for like ACLs, rotator cuff, those types of injuries, and then moved over to the visualization side in 2002, and it just had the opportunity to kind of grow with the company. Bill, when I started in 97, what is our division was about 100 million. And this year, we're well over 3.5 billion, getting ready to approach 4. So the growth has just been staggering. And like I said, just been very blessed to be with a company that has a great mission of we get to help people every day, get better. And also just the opportunities to work with the people I've worked with and travel the world and, meet a lot of great people, see a lot of great sites and learn a lot.
R&D, what does that stand for?
Research and development, sort of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we develop the products. Yeah.
Yeah. And, and that's got to be something that's ever changing. I was just, I was talking to a nurse that was work with me. I had a heart ablation back in August,
Okay.
For AFib. And for 5 years, I was thinking, well, I wish they just would have sent me here 5 years ago when I first had the episode. And the guy says, you didn't want to have a heart ablation 5 years ago. He goes, you're getting it right now at the best possible time, which, of course, 5 years from now, it might even be better. But they're working in Missoula, St. Patrick's Hospital. They're one of the few places that they're working on replacing valves through your veins, going up and doing that. And he said, but the way the heart ablations now compared to 5 years ago are light years better. He says you're going to have a way you're probably never going to be back here because of this. And so that's probably something that's changing in every surgery
every surgery, Bill. We're obviously we have to prove efficacy for our devices to get to market. But a big part of it is, they're using the data from surgeries, and this will just grow with AI, right? But they're using the data on the outcomes of these surgeries to really point people where they should go. And now, a lot of these centers, these hospitals are specializing. So one hospital in a system will specialize in orthopedics, another will specialize in, thoracics or other areas. And so you get these specialties where these surgeons are doing quite a few of these surgeries a year and really refining their techniques, but also the devices and the technology is just getting better and better and better.
Yeah, and that's such a big deal, of course, with heart patients as well. If you can get a valve put in your heart up your vein instead of ripping your chest open, I mean that's the toughest part of the recovery.
Exactly. The surgeries that they're doing on the cardio side are amazing, where they go up through your leg and we have a division that does stroke care. They go up through your leg and actually can block aneurysms in your head for stroke patients. And so that technology is so amazing, what you can do. And the amount of surgeries now where you get out that same day or one day later, we're big into hip and knee replacements. And a lot of times those are elderly patients. And I've been in those hip replacement cases, and it's like watching a carpenter. I mean, they're hammering, they're drilling. I mean, and to see that surgery and to know that 80-year-old patient or whatever is up and walking that day, it just blows your mind. So the advances in surgery, it's always getting better. So the longer you can wait, sometimes the better. But what they do for hips and knees now is pretty cool. So if people are having pain, go get her done. It just you're going to feel better once you recover and get your life back.
And that must be pretty rewarding to be part of that, to see. I mean, I think I read a story Jerry O'Brien wrote about you probably 2007, 2008 for Montana Standard. And it was like a question and answer kind of deal. And I think you said something about how your instruments are part of so much. You think of these athletes that go through, like an NFL player goes through an ACL surgery and he's back the next year to play. Your equipment was probably used in that surgery.
Yeah, the advances are amazing. And making the visualization systems, a lot of times people didn't know what camera was used on them before. We've made some advancements in the past 7 to 10 years with fluorescence, where we're using drugs to actually allow us to use light to illuminate different anatomy and physiology within the body, to allow you to see if blood flow is going through, to allow you to see, certain parts of the anatomy to make sure you don't hit it. And we actually are working with a couple drugs that are on the market now that allow you to see cancer. So to think about, cancer at some point is going to touch us all. And think about lung cancer or bladder cancer, where we can light up those lumps and allow the surgeon to see good margin. it's pretty mind blowing and pretty cool.
Yeah, it must be pretty cool going to work every day to working on stuff like that and seeing what's coming and cutting edge kind of stuff.
It is, and the stories we hear from our salespeople in the field, and having patients come in and talk to us, it's pretty rewarding. It truly is.
Yeah, and then of course that's a career that you've had that is based on your decision where you went to college.
Yeah,
You go to Montana Tech, and that allows you to do. I mean, of course you're going to get a job. I mean, because I think Tech's damn near 100% placement. As close as any school is. But you're going to go get a job, make good money, and be able to, more importantly, do great things.
yeah, it's pretty crazy, Bill. I don't know. I told this story in my commencement speech a couple of years ago, but med device wasn't something that I was strongly considering or leaning towards coming out of Tech.
Yeah.
But I got this call from the company Stryker, and come to find out, they found my resume in a book, like a physical book,
No
and they
kidding.
tore it out, and they wrote on there, "Do you know this dude?" And they gave it to Eric Finley, who was our kicker. He's quite a bit older than me, but was our kicker. And he says, "Yeah, I know Bryan." So they called me and took the interviews. I went out to the interview, and this is back in the day when they would photocopy your resume and then photocopy the schedule of who you're meeting with on the back and put it in your mailbox. So everyone I went to that day to interview with, they all had the one copy of my resume that said on there, "Do you know this dude?" But honestly, I tell the story because it was Montana Tech on the top of that resume that caught Stryker's attention, because Eric was doing a super good job at Stryker, and so they wanted to recruit more kids from Montana Tech. So having Montana Tech at the top of that resume is what got me the job here, and I've been blessed, 28 years later, to still be working here, and it's just been, like I said, truly blessing.
Did you ever think that you'd be invited to be the commencement address speaker for your alma mater?
Absolutely not. I was stunned. I was absolutely stunned and honored. And I don't mind public speaking, but gosh, it was a hard. I had to spend a few weeks on it. Coach Abbott helped me
That's a
out with
big
that
crowd.
too.
Was it the Civic Center?
It wasn't Civic Center.
Okay.
It was inside though, and so I had
Yeah.
to do it twice because the weather was a little rough. But yeah, Coach Abbott gave me some good tips. We took a little offshoot at the jackpot trip, and he gave me some tips and jokes and things that I used. And then just again, as you reflect on it, I was telling Vinny, I said, I don't know who was our commencement speaker. So you just what message do I want to try to send these kids, and maybe even the parents, and just make it short and sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they want it short and to the point. But yeah, obviously there's a good message there to deliver, especially at
Yeah.
Montana Tech, because I didn't go to Montana Tech. I was never a science guy or a math guy or an engineering guy. I was more of a guy. If I got a Scantron, I'd get a C on the test. If I got a blue book, I'd get an A because I could bullshit my way through
There you
it.
go.
Yeah. So that was that. So that was perfect for University of Montana, because I didn't know any professors at Montana Tech that I could bullshit through anything. But I did go to I went to year at Tech, and we had to go. The great Tom Lester was my. I don't know if you had any classes with Mr. Lester.
I didn't, but I know of him and have heard tons of stories. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he had to sign my schedule, because we had a day where the Butte High students went up and walked around, learned stuff, and then we signed up for classes, and we had to get a advisor to sign a card. So I went to him for my advisor, and he looked at that card and goes, this is a great first year, great first semester at Tech." He said, "What's your plans?" And I said, he had his reading glasses on, and I said, well, I'm going to go get some basics here for a year, then I'm going to go to UM and get a degree in journalism. He leaned forward, took his glasses down a little bit, and looked at me and said, "What do you have against eating?" And I still went with my plan for journalism, but I think about that a lot. If I could have just pulled off the engineering thing, I don't know if I'd be living in Butte, but I'd probably be eating better.
No, you do a good job of what you do, and I can tell you have a passion for it, so that's important as well.
Yeah, and I did get to see, of course, I wasn't good enough to play football. I quit after my freshman year of football in high school, but I didn't, I wasn't, even if I would have stayed, I wouldn't have been a college player. But I got to cover Coach Green's team for for about 10 years. I covered Coach Green, and I met with him every Thursday, before for a pregame meeting, which I'd have to watch him and Haskett would get in literally one time there was a wrestling match because Haskett kept answering the questions for him. And So, but I got to see him, and I'd see him after the games. Got to know him really well. So it's almost like I felt like I had an experience, not quite the same as a player, but I got to know him pretty well, and he knows me probably as well as anybody does, and I know him pretty well, and I still get it's great to be friends with Coach Green. So that's one of the best things about my job is that I got to be a part of Coach Green. He got to be
Yeah.
part of my life.
Yeah, he's a great guy to know and a great guy to have in your corner, and someone who's definitely on my board of directors who, if I've had rough patches at work or something going on in life that you can reach out to, and he'll listen and definitely give you sound advice.
Yeah, and when we got my wife and I got married in 2004, there was a scrimmage that morning. It was the day before Easter we got married because my grandparents' anniversary, my 30th birthday, and Coach Green was sitting there after he said he's after the scrimmage he was going to get in his marrying him and burying him suit, and he was sitting up there at the St. Lawrence Church giving the Arsenio Hall pump of the fist right next to as I was walking down the aisle. You might even reached out and gave us a high five if I remember right, but. Yeah, that's one of the first things I think about when I think of my wedding day, which is Coach Green, which I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but that's what.
But definitely Coach Green.
Yeah, and I see you still got a lot of digger stuff there. You got the Maynard made Tech number 89 there. Of course, Maynard, one of the most talented people in the world with woodworking.
What a great guy. He's got the heart of the Oredigger, and he bleeds it. He's always fun to catch up with at the games when I go back, and jackpot trips. So
Yeah, and that jackpot trip, what does Coach Green say? You go there for quiet time of peaceful prayer and meditation.
yeah, reflection and
Relaxation.
relaxation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. But what happens in jackpot stays in jackpot. I know that's also the number one rule, he says.
Yeah, I sure hope so. No, it's what a fun trip, and for us to get together and have a trip like that where we can go and catch up on what's going on with each other, have a good time, reminisce.
Yeah.
It's always a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. Just yeah, I was always invited to that trip. Coach Green used to always invite me to, but it was always like, right at the time of the year when a sports writer was not getting any time off.
Right.
And now I think it would probably it might be the last trip. It might end a marriage. Kind of those trips seem like at times. I don't know. I don't know if it would be good for me or not. But one of these years, I got to get down on that jackpot trip.
It's pretty fun. You're always welcome, Bill.
Yeah, and you were in the Emitad. You got the Emitad Club, which of course that came from Coach Green. I
Yeah,
believe. Every man, every time, all day. Did I get
that's
that right?
it. That's it. You got it. Yeah, that was the thing. I think we coined it in '96.
Oh, really?
And yeah, it came back, and the Emitad Club is really the work of Wasey Deegan, Mike Schumacher, Pete Eckergen, Coach Abbott was involved in really building up what that was going to be. Happy to be a member, and it's pretty cool what we've done already. And I think the runway is just starting as we get more players involved and more people involved there. I think this is going to be a tidal wave that's going to help Oredigger football for generations to come.
Yeah, and I had Brian Toon on my the podcast back in August, and he was trying to start some stuff up with the Grizzlies, and Tech kind of has a lot of that stuff. I don't know if the Grizzlies have the alumni association. You guys, I know you're part of that group with Vinny that put the seats in back in the 2000s, the green seats there, and you were part of raising money for the Digger Vision for the jumbotron, probably the original one,
Right.
and then the second one, which is insanely good.
Yeah.
No,
No, we're pretty blessed with the things we have at the stadium, and that all kind of stemmed from, when Joe McClafferty became the AD. I went in there and I took my black book and sat down at his desk. I said, "What are we going to do, Joe? Like, what are we going to do to get this thing going?" Because you just think about all the graduates from Tech and the great things that they're doing, and the Orediggers, football players that are out there doing amazing things in the different fields, and building that affinity towards Orediggers football and realizing what it is today and how we can just continue to take this to the next level and the next level. I think we're just at the beginning of a great a great era of Orediggers football and Orediggers football support.
Yeah, and just bringing up Joe, what I told him I wanted to have him on my podcast one day, and he says, "Well, I thought you wanted interesting people on there." But when I think back what he did as the AD, he just took it to a new level. Because Carroll kind of had an advantage over everybody for a while there with their championships were rolling in, just started. But Joe, he turned that into an event. It wasn't just a football game. You got the tailgate is, that all obviously Matt Steppen did a lot of great things building on that, and he's does tremendous job. But that all goes back to Joe's idea where he was trying to. He went to the job interview and he basically said he wanted to see. He was tired of seeing kids wear grizzly and bobcat stuff in Butte. He wanted everyone to be an Oredigger and stuff. And he really did create an environment that is. It was always fun going to Tech football games, especially if you're there for the football. But now it it rivals Cats and Grizz games.
It's unbelievable, Bill, and yeah, Joe deserves a ton of credit. It's been pretty cool for me to get to know Joe over the years, both with him being the AD, and then he's the guy that pulled me onto the foundation board. And yeah, to see what he did for, I know the football games, I'm sure basketball games as well. I've watched a few of those on Digger Vision, but I remember going back in some of the earlier days when we had the tailgate down there. And I remember calling my buddies from the tailgate being like, you wouldn't believe this. The opposing bus would pull up and, all the hooligans would be, chanting at them. And then for a while they did the deal where they would make a lineup and the opposing team would have to walk through the kind of the hooligans and the crowd there. And that got canned pretty quick, I think, after a year or a few games maybe. But
there are a few problems with that, yeah.
but Joe deserves a ton of credit for that. I mean, the thing with Joe, both as an AD and in the foundation, was he's never scared to swing big.
Yeah.
And he did swing big, and you're not going to hit many home runs if you don't swing big. And he just, he's hit some home runs for Montana Tech, both, like I said, at the athletic director role as well as, leading the foundation.
Yeah, and the turf is a project. Were you involved in the turf project as well?
I was, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think all these great things, of course, in the hyper complex now. You look at that weight room with the hyper. That's that rivals what an NFL team probably has for a weight room. And it benefits all the students.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen the plans for the hyper modernization, but it's something that we're doing as part of the Tech 125th anniversary for the foundation there, or at the foundation, is a hyper modernization, and there's 2 phases to it. And I mean, the first phase is just going to take it to the next level, and if we can get to the second phase, I mean, it will be a special athletic facility.
That's awesome. I love that you're still involved in that, because a lot of people, they go to college, they get their degree, and then they go earn their money, and they might pay attention to the scores. But you still are bleeding Oredigger orange and green.
Yeah, well, I think it has to do a lot with obviously Coach Green, and then the guys that I played with, Vinny and Shu. We just stay involved, and we like to be around each other, and we stay close. Even Jensen and even the Tanner Egan and all these guys that we played with in '96. We just kind of kept that bond going. We just kept kind of chipping away. We started, like you said, with the seat project, and then it was the scoreboard, and then it was the turf. And so no, just really cool to be a part of it. And like I say, it's fun to get back to the stadium and you can see the difference that you've made.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Tanner, because when I think of some of my favorite defensive players, he's definitely on the ones that I should have mentioned in the first place. And I got enough Tanner stories from the VU that I better not ever share publicly. He'd probably kill me. But I got to hang out with him and Teague after and Tanner's wife Lisa after we ran the New York Marathon in '09. And I don't know if you probably got to know Teague pretty well.
I did. Well, I got to know all of them really well. And Harry Egan, their dad from the jackpot trip, Harry would make the trek down with us and the Egan boys. And that was, probably a decade ago when we were going pretty strong. And there would be blood on the bus. There would be black eyes on the bus. The Egan boys with their dad can run pretty hard. So
yeah. Well, the funny part was with Teague, wasn't Tanner. I was sitting by Tanner when it happened. We were in this club in New York City, and the Yankees game was on. Between games, you'd hear this music playing, and I just assumed it was a jukebox, but it was karaoke. They were singing and they didn't do it. They only did it during commercials, and then karaoke started off big time after the game was over. And it was like you'd see on TV, you'd think Simon should be judging these people that were so good. It was so talented. So Teague signs up to sing a song, and he's saying, of all the songs, he picked My Ding-a-Ling. And he was singing it, and the words were off. I'll defend him forever. The words were off that didn't match the music, and it kind of threw him off. And And I remember me and Tanner just sitting there, please don't say you're from Montana. Please don't say you're from Montana. And then he goes, come on, you got to cut me some slack. I'm just a guy from Montana here. And oh, he said it. He's from Montana. But we
Well,
had
and
so much fun limping around that night.
I know you know the High Chaparral from
Oh,
back
yeah.
in the day, and I know you and Matt probably
Oh, yeah.
visited
Vinny
that
was
place.
always there. Yeah.
Josh and I would go down there with the guys, and Tanner was one of the guys that would come with us, and we would go to a little concert down there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Matt Vincent is one of the best karaoke singers I've ever heard in my life.
He is pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. Especially, I always love it when he sings. I always request Little Sister by Elvis and he sings that because he does. And then his buddy Okrish, Chad, the best performance I ever saw on a karaoke was Chad, and he sang "Kiss" by Prince at the Main Street Lounge, and he didn't even look at he was turned around facing the crowd, and his eyes were closed half the time. And after he sang that, the old Main Street Lounge was just kind of a rough little place, so we only went there for the karaoke. He was treated like a Beatle. Everybody wanted to meet him after he sang that.
Well, this stems from the days of the High Chaparral. Josh
Yeah,
and I would say there's three keys to karaoke. One, you got to have a great song that gets people going.
yeah,
Number two, you got to know the words because you can't go up there and try to read it because you're going to flub up. And number
yeah,
three, you got to have stage presence. And I know
yeah,
Chad Oakridge has all three of those things. So I'm sure it was a great
yeah.
performance.
It was Josh Vincent a good. Was he a good karaoke singer? Because he's obviously, I'm sure he had the stage presence down and he knew the
Oh yeah,
words. Yeah.
Josh is great. We would do karaoke down in Jackpot. Now they've discontinued that, so we're trying to get it back when we get down there to have the karaoke shop come in. But yeah, Josh always has a great performance, usually in costume down there.
Yeah. Do you sing quite a bit then when you go down the jackpot?
I have a couple songs I like to sing.
Really? What do you go to? What's your go-to?
My go-to is Mountain Music by Alabama.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
That's good stuff.
yeah. Thanks. We enjoy it.
So are you going to be make it up for a playoff game or two?
I hope so, Bill. I got to see the schedule as it comes out, and
Yeah.
would absolutely love to. Would love to get up and see the Orediggers play, and always so fun to see the teammates that you know, and then the ones that you don't expect to be back there for the game, and just to catch up and see where everyone's at in life. So yeah, I really hope to get up there.
Yeah, and I know a lot of the games this year, I think the tailgate must have been crazy in the second half because they haven't left a lot of reason to go back to catch the second half because they've had big leads at halftime. And
Yeah,
those tailgate parties get, I mean, there might be more people sometimes at the tailgate than there are actually in the stadium, and the stadium's packed.
yeah. Well, and what's nice too is being an Emmetad member, they've got a part of the north end zone carved off for us, so we can
Yeah.
actually get away from the tailgate, get back into the game, and still be in a spot where we can hang out and have a beer or two. But actually be back in the game, not
Yeah.
standing at the trailer.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you make it up. I get to say hi to you. I've seen you almost every year, I think, since you left. You've come up for one game, and I always joke you always come and introduce yourself to me like I don't know who Oredigger legend Bryan Larson is.
Well, I don't know about Orediggers legend, but
Oh
Bill,
yeah.
I just a ton of respect for Butte, and had so many good times there and so many good people, and then just I got to give some credit to you as well. I've listened to, I think I'm almost caught up on all the podcasts.
No,
Love to
really.
do those. I take a walk every day, try to go about 2.5, 3 miles, and oftentimes that's what's in my ears is the ButteCast. So I get a few chuckles and learn a few things as well.
Well, hopefully they're correct things. I'm not steering you wrong there.
No, always
For
good,
sure.
good
I'm sure you're not
stories.
learning them from me. You learn from the guests, and got a big guest coming up on Friday. I get to finally get to interview Tim Montana. I've been looking forward to that since I started
Awesome.
this deal.
I know you have. I know you have. That'll be great.
Yeah. Well, Paul, Paul, I got, yeah, Brian, maybe you should introduce yourself to me. I got Paul Latke on my mind for whatever reason. But Brian, I appreciate your time, and I love seeing you at the games, and I appreciate what you do for the Orediggers, and I know because your fingerprints are all over so many of the great things that are up at Montana Tech, and it's great to see that you give back to the school that obviously gave you so much.
No, appreciate it, Bill, and just the opportunity to pay back not only to the university but the great town of Butte, and people like Mike and Sheila Vincent. I talked about being in Laura Lee Opie. Don and Raylene Ogren were great to me when I was there, giving me Sunday dinners, and I just think back to those days and how can I pay that forward? Pay that forward to the younger kids, but also pay it back, in supporting Butte and supporting Montana Tech. So, soft spot in my heart for sure.
Yeah. Well, again, thanks for your time. It was good seeing you, buddy.
Good seeing you too, Bill. Thank you very much.
Jewelry Design Center. We want to be your jeweler for life.